Hi, Patrick. How are you?
I'm good, sir. How are you today? Thank you very much for having me on.
Well, thank you for coming on the show. Nice to have you with us. And you are an author. You've written a book called Sunrise in Saigon. It says it's the first book in a series. How many books do you plan to write in this series?
Today, I would say seven. I have seven. I have seven in the series. I've written four of them already, and I'm actually thinking about kind of the draft for book five. But yes, I started writing in 2019 and went on a major writing frenzy, as you can imagine. And I wrote three of them in the first year, and I just finished penning the fourth one recently, and now it's kind of in a draft edit.
We're just going to talk about the whole series then, basically, yeah?
Well, most of it's obviously the first one. The Sunrise and Saigon is probably the most important because it does set the tone on Jack Kendall. He's obviously the main actor. And then there's lots of people coming in the other books as well. There's always new characters that will show up in new plots as well. But the first book really does set the direction as far as, where Jack Kendall came from. And then obviously, the importance of other people in his life that obviously will be in some of the other books as well.
Okay, is this a Vietnam War type story?
Great question. I get that a lot. The answer is no, not really. It really started for me. This is a historical fictional based on true events. I did have a chance to go to Vietnam in 2012, and a part of the book is written based upon my time there when I went on a big cycling tour of the country and saw a lot of things, discovered a lot of people, and really fell in love with the country. But I've actually been following Vietnam since I was 11 when Saigon fell in 1975. And so it was always kind of a life dream for me, or a life journey to wanting to go to Vietnam, to not only experience the country but obviously experience the people as well. So the book is kind of a historical fiction. It has some items in there that are kind of based on some true events, but in the end, it is very much of a romantic fictional novel.
Okay, when was the first time you went to Vietnam?
2012.
What did you think?
Oh, it was nothing what I expected. When I arrived there in 2012, it was on 12/12 of 2012. I was there for a cycling event to cycle not only through Ho Chi Minh City, but all the way to the Cambodian border and back. And the people were amazing. I was expecting, some level of hostility, some level of resentment. None. The people were incredibly wonderful, very hospitable. They sat down next to me when I'm having an espresso and just started talking up, soccer and the world politics. And it was probably one of the most pleasant trips I've ever taken anywhere in the world. I was caught completely by surprise by the genuineness of the people.
Well, my understanding of the population of Vietnam at this point is that most of the population, the majority of the population, wasn't even born during the Vietnam War. So
Yes.
the people that were old enough either died or got out.
Yes, that's a very good observation, Douglas, because when you do talk to the younger generation, many of them don't even remember when China invaded in 1978 because it was never taught in schools. Um, Many of them give you a blank look like the French. Where were they in the 50s? So you are absolutely correct that the younger generation has a much different as persona than the older. The older crowd, absolutely, to your point, many of them got out, many became boat refugees, many of them, immigrated beyond Vietnam as well. But the younger generation, it was fascinating to listen to their version of historicals. And I also learned a lot from them as well as they were describing their education system and how they had to kind of move up in the world and the opportunities that presented to them.
What does your character do in Vietnam? Why is he there?
So he's primarily there. The book really picks up initially when Jack is 11 and he hears that on the radio, the fall of Saigon has happened on April 30th in 1975. And he's a very inquisitive 11-year-old that looks around in his community and sees a lot of guys coming back, a lot of girls coming back from Vietnam, um, you know, obviously being treated incredibly poorly by the citizens of our country. Many of them disassociated quickly. So he saw this firsthand. And then when he was in the military in the 1980s, he remembers running into a lot of Vietnam veterans that were still in the service that he inquisited them all the time, like colonels and majors and sergeant majors, and say, hey, you were there. What was it like? So he's always had kind of an inquisitiveness to it. In 2012, he was in the technology space. And he was in a very, very dire place, not only from health, but just from kind of overall mental, life perspective. And he really saw making the trip to Vietnam as he needs to find that journey within him. He's always wanted to do it. He felt that his time was running out in life, that he better go and do it before his health gives out even more. And that really kind of was this compelling event. And also enticed to that, he met a young lady online while he was chatting, and she was helping him try to find different things in Vietnam he was looking for, including the nuns that did some things that helped out in Operation Babylift. So he had multiple reasons to go, but it really was a way of him sort of getting a grasp of his life. And obviously where he wanted to go in life was be better. But he did see it as this is a journey I need to take, and he took it.
Is this story parallel to your own real life?
So I get that a lot. There is some nonfiction to the book, but as I told a lot of the people I've done interviews with, I said, just this, if this was really truly an autobiography, it'd be boring. So a lot of the plot lines, some of it is true. There's a lot, especially the part about trying to find the Catholic nuns. That was a true part of the story. Investing in the water company was a true part of the story as well. But how everything sort of ended up, or how it sort of kind of materialized, that really became more of a fictional part of the story.
What genre would you put this series in?
Great question, Douglas, because when I was working with a publisher, my book's published under Austin Macaulay. We went round and round for almost 3 months on where does this really need to fit. They thought it fit under war, and I said, no, it really has nothing to do with war, so don't put me there. But I think we came to agreement this was historical fictional with romance and suspense is where the book ended up.
Well, obviously, when you say Saigon, people are going to think Vietnam War first thing. Maybe as time goes by, that will fade away. But for now, I think most of us still, Saigon is synonymous with the war because it's not called Saigon anymore. It's Ho Chi Minh City. How long were you there?
I actually was there for about 3 weeks the first time in 2012. In 2013, I went back again for another month because I invested in a water company. One of the reasons I did that was when I was cycling in 2012, and especially in the outlying districts from Ho Chi Minh City and Saigon and the Mekong and the whole area, you saw a lot of children with black teeth, and some actually didn't have any teeth whatsoever. So I actually inquired and kind of got off my bike a few times and kind of looked in their mouths and asked people around going, why is this? And they said, they're drinking sugar. They can't afford even water. And so I was riding through one of the districts, I think it was District 13 at the time, and I'd come across this factory that was really kind of broken down, but you saw people hauling water out of it. And I went inside and looked around. I saw they had reverse osmosis tanks and things that were running in there. I kind of asked the guy, what are you doing here? What's this all about? He goes, my water business is failing and it's collapsing and I don't have the money. So I ended up becoming an investor in his water company with the agreement that we're going to create clean water and affordable clean water. So children, people in the outlying districts of Saigon can afford clean water and hopefully reverse the tide of people just drinking sugar. And the good news was that, within a few months of making investments, we fixed the factory, fixed production. We paid all the permits and fines that were extraordinary. We hired a crew of people, and we started creating very good quality water that we would distribute to the outlying areas and make water available for people that they could drink. And then we donated some proceeds to the Catholic nuns in Saigon to help support them, along with some orphanages as well. And it kind of kept going till about the end of 2014, where I eventually had to close it down.
Oh, so it's no longer running, no?
No, it was running well operationally, but tragedy be told, more people paid attention to it. As more people paid attention to it, more people came by and said, "Oh, your tire's a little flat. We need a fee." And when you have 20, 30, 40 people doing that, you pretty much wipe out the entire capital of what you're doing. And it did reach a point towards the middle of 2014, I think it was, that literally we couldn't even make water anymore because they kept turning the water off, and we had to go to the city and make a deposit, and it just really became operationally challenging. Even though we were doing good things and the right things, there was not an easy place to operate at the time.
Was it the government that was?
So it the municipal part of the government, which is this, not in our term, it'd be the town, not the city. It'd be the town version. Then there's the city. Then you have the county. Then you have this, the region authority. Then you have the state. This was literally just the town people, the town, directors, and it was very challenging to communicate, obviously, because I didn't speak Vietnamese. My operations person was getting arrested every week and had to pay that bailout. So it finally just reached the point where saying, okay, you really don't want me to be here. You really don't want this operation to be functioning in your district. And I eventually sold all the metal to a scrapyard.
Well, that's too bad. But it's not surprising because in a lot of countries, that sort of graft and corruption is pretty rampant, right down to the local level.
Yes. So one thing you mentioned, Douglas, I really appreciate was your comment about Sunrise in Saigon being a kind of a connection to the war. And a lot of my early beta readers that came on, I have to tell you, it was wonderful for them to make that same analogy. So, I saw Saigon and immediately thought this is a war book, and they dove into the first 20 pages. Thought, well, it really has nothing very much to do with the war. There was pieces of it because there's some critical characters, including Forrest Adams, that was a Marine during the Vietnam era, that later on joined the CIA, and he had some things going there. But when you look at the cover of the book, which is really kind of a fascinating piece of it, the real hidden meaning of the book itself is really the picture of the Saigon River. And that really is the analogy of that is the relationship between Jack and Lynn. It's the fact that they knew that there were always going to be a river between them. There's never going to be a way in life that they're going to be able to be together. So that's part of the romantic side of the book, was that you had this, older man, younger woman having a brief relationship, a brief courtship, but they had a very, the moment the sun came up that morning together, they saw the beauty of it, but they also saw the reality that there was no bridge, there was no sandbar, there was no path. It literally was going to have the separation. So as people see the word Saigon, you're right, they do draw the immediate term of going, the war, but then they see the cover and they go, what's the deal with the river? So when I explain to them the analogy part of it, then they go, oh, okay, now I'm getting the romantic connection to it.
Okay. We've got just about a minute left, and I want to make sure we get in that all of the proceeds for your book are going to...
Helmets for Kids?
Helmets for Kids, thank you. I
Yes.
couldn't find
Right,
it.
so Helmets Kids is actually one of the helmets that is manufactured in Vietnam. And I got involved in it as part of when I started bringing the book out, and I named them as my benefactor. So proceeds of the book and proceeds of my coffee, because I have a coffee company called cyclewriter3espresso.com. So the proceeds of the coffee and the books go to provide money to purchase helmets for children in Vietnam. They actually manufacture them in Vietnam as well. It started in 2000 by President Bill Clinton while he was there on his presidential tour. He was one of the original kind of founders of this particular project. And the actress Michelle Yeoh, who is obviously famous from Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, she's actually the global ambassador for Helmets for Kids in Vietnam. So I made them my benefactor. And to date, I've donated pretty close to almost $2,000 worth of coffee sales. That has produced about 200 helmets so far for the kids. My goal next year is to have 1,000 helmets available for the children now that the book is being released, and proceeds from the book will go to help support them.
Well, I think that's fantastic. I hope that continues. Patrick, we do have to wind this down. We are out of time. Do you have a website you want to give out?
Yes, the book can be purchased today on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Walmart.com, and some other retailers out there. But please go to www.sunriseinsaigonnovel.net, and you can purchase the book there.
Okay, great. Thank you for coming on. It was nice meeting you. Great story. And best of luck with everything you're doing.
Thank you, Douglas, and thank you for having me on again.